everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Textile Talks. I'm Amy Milne, Executive Director of the Quilt Alliance. I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm in Morganton, North Carolina, and I hope that you are letting us know in the chat box where you're connecting from today. We'd love to know. We have a really fun presentation to share with you today. Boy, you think you've thought of everything. So I would like to share with you a little bit about Textile Talks in case this is your first time joining us. Textile Talks is a weekly series presented on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern in partnership by the Quilt Alliance and our three partners, SAQA, Studio Art Quilt Associates, Surface Design Association, and the International Quilt Museum. And it's made possible by all the folks that you saw the logos of, our generous industry sponsors and viewers like you. All Textile Talks are recorded and they're made available via YouTube. And my colleague Lucy Shaken of SAQA will enter the link for the Textile Talks YouTube recording list in the chat box now. It's a great way to catch up on talks that you didn't get to see or rewatch talks. I represent the Quilt Alliance. I'm the executive director of the Quilt Alliance, and the Alliance was founded 30 years ago. This is our 30th anniversary year, and our mission is to document, preserve, and share the stories of all quilts and all quilt makers. And today I'm going to tell you the story of QTM, an event series launched in 2011 that has helped the Quilt Alliance demonstrate in real life and via virtual programming what our mission is all about. And I'll give you a little history of the event in photos, share a selection of video clips, and then preview this year's event. And I'll also tell you how you can access these past QTM event recordings if you did not, if you weren't one of the original ticket holders. So just some reminders, as we always do. Please be sure to use the chat box for greetings, comments, or technical help, and reserve the Q&A box to enter your questions. I'm not sure that you'll have questions, but please feel free to do so. And between Lucy and myself, we'll try to answer them. Also, I want to mention that you can turn on live captions by clicking on the live transcript or CC button on your Zoom controls. And one note before I continue, I'm going to play some videos and I'll be playing them at maximum volume on my end. So you'll have to adjust the volume on your device. Sometimes wearing headphones can help, but just know that I've got it up as loud as I possibly can, but sometimes with pre-recorded things, the sound isn't as clear as we'd like it to be. So let me tell you a little bit about QTM. It started in 2011, and I'll elaborate on what those initials stand for in just a second. But QTM started in 2011 when the Quilt Alliance board and staff sought to offer a destination event in New York City for quilt lovers. We had several board members living in or near the New York metro area, and we wanted to, so we were brainstorming what we were going to do. The first idea was a big quilt cruise on the Hudson River. We have done a quilt train event where we had quilts that have been documented on a train. So we thought maybe a quilt cruise, but we really wanted to take advantage of the city, especially the garment district. And we wanted to partner with museums that have quilts in their collections and a shop, which was City Quilter at the time and later Gotham Quilts. And so we came up with a hybrid event that would be part project demonstrations, QSOS interviews mostly with folks that you know who are well-known quilters and artists, part fundraiser for the Quilt Alliance, and part Big Apple adventure with friends, other friends who love quilts. So QA board member and author and quilter Marie Bostwick came up with the name Quilters Take Manhattan. Remember the Muppet movie, or the Muppets Take Manhattan? So it was kind of a riff on that. And we held the main event at the Great Hall at the Fashion Institute of Technology, great nonprofit hall that you can rent. And we also had an evening event at Victoria Finley Wolf's cool, super cool loft studio in the Garment District. And we offered museum tours, a Broadway outing, and shopping with sponsors at our event. And that launched the series. So from 2011 to 2017, we held this event at FIT and in the Garment District and surrounds through 2017. This is one, aside from one of the first, and Jay McCarroll, the fashion designer who got his start on Project Runway, was the speaker, and he was interviewed by Mark Lipinski, which was fantastic. Here we are wearing some of his designs. There's Luke Haynes wearing sort of the showstopper piece that Jay showed, and that's Jay in the top photo in the middle of two board members. In 2012, Meg Cox interviewed Denise Schmidt on stage for QSOS, and there's Rod Kirikoff. I'm not sure if that's the year that Rod did a Go Tell It with one of the quilts from his collection, but there he is. In 2013, there's Meg Cox again as our MC, and Hollis Chatelaine was the speaker. Here's Mark Dunn in 2014 showing a quilt made by Luke Haynes. That was a commission that Mark did, but Moda has been our presenting sponsor from the very start and is still sponsoring our current online event. So I can say this about Moda: they are one of the most generous companies in our community, but also they really get involved. Mark not only sponsored the event through Moda, but he helped go get pizza for volunteers. He helped hang banners. His whole family came and helped one year. Just such a committed person in our community. This is 2015, Ricky Timms. That was the year the Pope visited New York City, and they changed the schedule at the last minute, and we had to compete with the Pope's, the processions and people coming to see the Pope. That was tricky. We called it a Pope-portunity. We're just like, we're going to go for it. We've got a Pope-portunity to be in New York. We're going to do it. And this is 2015. I wanted to show you that we had vendors, very committed vendors. This is Roberta Leonard and Carla Overland of Cherrywood. And Carla started her challenge as part of a QTM when I think it was the first one we all went to see The Wiz, and she got the idea for her first challenge. So great ideas have been born at this event. 2016, Mark Lipinski being interviewed by Marie Bostwick, and there's Allie Aller and Meg Cox as a part of this. We had sort of a heavyweight quilting championship of the world contest. So it's always been fun. It's always been about friends getting together. You know, when you think about, oh, I'd love to go to New York, and I'd love to go to New York and see quilts with all the people that I love who love quilts. So it was that kind of vibration that permeated the event, looking forward to seeing friends. And for us, it was a chance to really demonstrate our projects. We also got a chance to work with museums like the Met Museum, the Ratty, if I'm saying that right, Textile Center, that's part of the Met. And this is a tour being given as one of the add-on events you could do as a part of QTM. The other opportunity was for us to work with guilds in the area. So this is members of the Metro Mod Guild in New York that year, and a sizable group came to QTM that year. This is the last QTM we did in New York as an in-person event. 2017, it was Sherry Lynn Wood as the speaker. Carolyn Maslumi interviewed Michael Cummings. Mary Kay Waldvogel did a talk. It was stellar. And Pokey Bolton was our MC. It was just really great. And, you know, at that point, we started to feel how expensive it was and difficult with a staff of 1 full-time and 2 part-time. That's the Quilt Alliance makeup, staff makeup. It was just too much. We really were thinking, what are we going to do? So we started taking our QTM on the road in some respects with a educational outreach tour we called Quilt Story Roadshow. And we decided we needed to take a break from the in-person QTM. Then we all know what happened in 2020. The pandemic changed everything. We were all doing the pivot. And it's kind of was funny because we were going to return to New York in 2020. Our plan was to do an in-person event, return to FIT. We'd kind of pulled it together in terms of how we could afford to do it and still make it a fundraiser, and then COVID happened. So we said, we all just need to take a moment. And we decided to take that concept and just change the name slightly. It's still QTM, but it was going to be held online, and Quilters Take a Moment was born. Our first year, 2020, Anna Maria Horner stepped up to be our speaker, and we said, well, we'd like to interview you for, QSOS as the headliner of QTM. And she said, that sounds great, but I've got something even more, sort of a more reflective idea, a more reflective approach. And she did a long in-process sort of, I thought felt like it was almost like a poetic video about her process as a designer and an artist. It was beautiful. It was just so well done. And she did all the editing herself. And following the presentation of the video she created, Frances O'Rourke Dowell interviewed her briefly after. That same year, and we're going to see a clip of it in just a minute, Carolyn Maslumi interviewed artist and quilt maker Dindga McCannon, which was fantastic. And I think you're going to really enjoy seeing that clip. The next year, 2021, Carolyn came back and interviewed B. Sub Butler, which was fantastic also interview, so well done. And the idea with these is that they are demonstrating the QSOS project, Quilters Save Our Stories. It's our oral history project that is almost 25 years old and one of the only oral history projects of its kind and its size archived in the Library of Congress. We also held panel discussions at many of our QTM events. 2021, the theme was Remembrance and Commemoration in Quilt Making. We did a virtual exhibit as part of this that was curated by Laura Hopper. And these are the folks that were involved in the panel that year. It was fascinating. And Janniken Smucker was the moderator. We did a shop talk. We've done a version of this each year where we invite our sponsors to come on and talk about what it was like in 2021, trying to recover from the pandemic. What were the trends that they were seeing? What were they doing personally to stay motivated and stay, give themselves a creative outlet? In 2022, our theme was sustainability. And we had 3 QSOS interviews. We were really feeling our oats at that point with virtual capacity. So we did 3 panels and 3 QSOS interviews. And one of them was with Jennifer Sampu, interviewed by her colleague, Patty Murphy. We also interviewed Tula Pink. We featured an interview. Tula was interviewed by her colleague and friend, Angela Walters. And the other one I'm going to show you a clip of is Carla Hemlock, who was interviewed by Gwen Westerman. And I'll get to that in just a second. So I'm going to go back a little bit before I show you this clip. I just want to give you a little intro. So this clip starts at about 15 minutes into the interview. So a QSOS interview is typically about 30 minutes, sometimes longer, but it's short. It's 2 people sitting down. Anyone can do them. It's a volunteer. It's a very grassroots project. We just happen to be recording this one visually, but typically they're an audio project. And that audio recording and the photographs taken of the quilt with their quilt with the maker. The interviewee are archived in the Library of Congress and at the University of Kentucky. There's a digital archive there called the Nunn Center. So this one starts about, so we're going to start the clip at about 15 minutes in. And this is in 2020. So Carolyn's asking her about various pieces of her work. And, you know, I think Dindga she's probably better known in the fine art world than in the quilt world, but I think you'll really love what she has to say. So I'm going to play this. And remember, I've got the volume turned up as far as I can. So you'll just have to adjust your own device volume.
Yes. And there was another piece in the show, in the same exhibition, that celebrated the tennis player Althea Gibson, who won her first tournament in 1957. Over the years, I've shown at least 2 or 3 quilts of yours with the theme, the subject matter being Althea Gibson. And as I told you earlier, I thought you were related to her, and you explained to me what?
That I'm related to her by location because I was a lifelong resident of Harlem. She came from Harlem. And that's the connection. And it all started with the Disney Corporation, who had the ESPN zone on 42nd Street and Broadway in New York. They commissioned me to do a quilt on the life of Althea Gibson. And I got the job because they couldn't afford Faith Ringo. So they came to me. So I said, yes, that's right in what I want to do. And I did the first piece. It stayed at the ESPN zone on 42nd Street for a good 10 years. Wow. Every New Year's Eve, I would never go down to 42nd Street, but I would always say, Althea is right there. She's looking at it. So that way I'm there too. And then one day I went down and the ESPN zone had closed. And the quilt, I assume, went to the Disney Corporation, because now that I'm thinking about it, that first piece was the second piece, because they gave me a certain size and I had started to work on it, and then they changed their mind and they wanted another size. So they bought my first draft of that particular piece, and then the second piece went on to actually hang in their space.
Wonderful, wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the meaning of some of these squares and symbols on the quilt?
These are her accolades. She was the first African American woman to have a ticker tape parade on Broadway in New York. And I can't read some of the other things, but it all tells what she was the first. She also was a golf master that hardly anybody knows. And unfortunately, she died almost penniless. Because in those, like athletes now, they make tremendous amounts of money. There were stories of her actually having to eat off of some of the metal trays that she got as awards, because money had gotten tight. I think perhaps during the last couple of years, people came to her aid and began to help her, but for a long time she was very, very poor.
Wow.
And unfortunately, that's what happens to a lot of artists, athletes who came before their time.
Dindga, when you think in terms of quilts, what do you think about the importance? What's the importance of quilts in American life? Have you ever thought about that?
Yes, for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's usually a woman's medium, although a lot of men do it. And quilts, and the way that I think of it, we've had to fight for equality in the art scene, because for many years it was kind of poo-pooed. Oh, the women just do that. It's not valuable. It doesn't have you don't get the same price points for a piece of artwork that's on fabric as you do in the traditional plastic art. I love quilt making because you can do, within a quilt, there's really not a whole lot of rules. You can do all kinds of things. And not just us as artists, but the everyday person can learn to make a quilt square, or they can paint and learn to do basic quilting and all that. So quilting to me is a long tradition. And actually the tradition, as far as African Americans, they are quilted garments, not necessarily art pieces per se, that came out of Africa from centuries ago. Here in America, you know, they're from the G's, Ben's quilter, and people before then. Quilting has always been a woman's way of expressing herself artistically, or one of the ways. You know, it was sort of like accepted, and it was okay when you grew, or usually as you grew up, your grandmother taught you to quilt, or somebody in your family quilted. And so that was a tradition that was kind of passed on. My family didn't make quilts, but they did sew.
I see. Dindga, I have to say, you are indeed a Renaissance woman. You are. You are very much so. Let me ask also, are you in your studio right now?
No, I'm in my office right now.
Okay.
My studio's in the basement.
I see. Because I was just wondering how your studio's set up. You know, I know you're involved in so many different.
It's a mess, but it's my mess. And like I tell people, sometimes I can't remember what I did yesterday, but I can remember where I got every little item from 90% of the time, where I got it, how much I paid for it, and actually where it is. I guess you would call my studio jam-packed with goodies. It might look a little chaotic to the average person, but I know where everything is. I also know how to clear the table off so I can work.
I love that. It's a great interview. And Carolyn is, you know, a longtime friend of Dindga's and colleague. So she really did such a lovely job interviewing her. The next clip I want to show you is from also from 2020. We had been talking a lot about the idea of quilt keepers, the people that are collecting quilts, preserving them, making sure that their history is safe. And these are the folks that were on the panel. Janniken Smucker, again, was the moderator. Emily Bodie, who's a fashion designer who uses quilts. Carolyn Maslumi, Julie Silver, Mary Kay Waldvogel, and Jack Walsh. And here's just a little clip, and it's a really sweet moment at the end where they're all, every face on the screen is smiling and laughing. And I just enjoyed it so much myself.
I'd like to think about that relationship between the maker and between you as a quilt keeper. Do you think it's important to value or to honor the intentions of the maker? Do you feel like you are in a relationship with that maker, collaborating in some way, even if you perhaps haven't ever met the person? Anyone can jump in, or I can turn to.
I'd like to say that an important consideration is that if we get a quilt like the two that I showed of my own, we don't know the intention. If we don't know the maker and she hasn't left anything, we don't know the intention of the maker. And I think it's really important to pay attention to that, because it's relatively easy to project something onto a quilt. And it's important that we don't do that and recognize that we don't know what she had in mind, or he.
I don't see myself as a collaborator with the quilt maker, but I see myself in the role as a supporter. It's important to me to purchase the quilts in order to help that quilt maker to sustain themselves with their income. But it's also important to me as a curator and collector to do whatever I can to promote that quilt maker. I think that's one of the missions for me as a collector, to help support that quilt maker in any way that I can. I want others to know about the significance and beauty of that quilt maker's work. Because many, especially African American quilters, they're anonymous. One of my roles too as a curator is to give an opportunity for African American quilt makers to exhibit their work in museums, not only here in this country, but around the world. They need that opportunity because in many instances they are marginalized and they don't necessarily participate in quilt guilds and whatever. So it's important for me to give an opportunity for the artists to display their work as well as people buying it. And I have to say, with every exhibition I've curated, 90% of the quilts have sold. So I'm happy about that for the past 37 years. So that's a good thing.
That's an amazing service to the artist. That's fantastic. Emily, I wanted you to hear your perspective on this, particularly this aspect of collaboration, since you're taking an original quilt and reworking it either with a reproduction or with the original piece itself. Like, I imagine there's sort of, I mean, you're giving the quilt new life in this way, but taking without necessarily knowing the maker's intention.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, we work with quilt tops and distressed quilts. So we work to repair and preserve a lot of the rot that happens. And then for the reproductions, so much of it has to do with really keeping with the original fabrications as close as we can. Although, you know, we're taking something like a really fragile silk pongee and trying to translate it into menswear. So we do have to sacrifice some of, you know, the original chosen fabrics. But you know, we try to preserve as much as we can and use era-specific fabrications as well when we repair quilts.
So you each probably have a different way of interacting with the quilts that you have in your collection or have passed through your collection. I think Julie gave a great example already of getting professional photography done and hoping to publish a book of those. What are some of the other ways that you interact with the objects themselves? I know there's some questions about, and Jack mentioned the hanging system that he uses. I'd love to hear more about that as well.
Yes, which hanging system are you talking? Were you talking with me, Janica?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. When I after I got my collection going, I ended up needing to have more space at my house, and I decided, okay, let's go whole hog. And I included, when I built the addition on, a quilt display gallery where I am now with Tim Harding's quilt behind me, and it has it's 34 feet long, 24 feet wide, and 21 feet high, and it has the windows going up to within 19 feet. I had a problem. I wanted to display the quilts in there. I wanted to be able to look outside. I wanted to preserve the quilts, and I got together with my conservator, and we came up with a system where I have slides. I have fabric that comes down from the ceiling on rollers, which I can control with my iPhone. And then I have metal rods that come down on separate cables from the ceiling that I can use to suspend the quilts. So I can sit here and run the quilts up and down, have them totally protected behind UV glass, in front of which is an opaque slide. But if I need to work on them or change them or something like that, I can just touch my iPhone and bring them down, and we will replace them.
I wish we all had such an amazing resource for enjoying our quilts. What are some of the other ways that some of you panelists interact? And
I sleep under them.
but that's so unconventional.
The house is filled with them. It always has been. People come here and they feel like they've come to quilt heaven. But I use a lot of them in my lectures. I write about them. I really interact. They're around me all the time. So.
And I live with mine as well. I rotate them on display within my home. I loan them to museums for exhibit. It's important for me that they're seen. That's very important. And also the documentation, again, I want to reemphasize the documentation is very important. I have documentation for every quilt. I have the paper documentation, I have a file, then I have all that information digitized. So it is easily accessible for scholars and museums or anyone that might be displaying that quilt or studying that quilt. So it's important to live with the quilts. I don't like to see that they're stored and you never see them. That defeats the purpose of collecting the quilts.
I just sent Tim Harding back upstairs. I'll bring him back down again.
It's amazing.
Goodness. Talk, Jack, so you get big.
Yeah, I'm sitting here with my iPhone and I just ran the quilt up and ran it back down.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Oh, wow. So cool. Does everybody want one of those now? The next clip I'm going to show you is the first section of a QSOS interview with Carla Hemlock by fellow artist and Quilt Alliance board member Gwen Westerman. Carla is an accomplished and internationally recognized artist, but she doesn't have a website or social media. So I think that she's not as well known in the quilt world as she is maybe in the fine art world, museum world again. So this is really a great opportunity for us to document and preserve and share her story even more. And so I'll show you just the beginning, maybe 8 minutes, I think it is, of this clip.
My name is Gwen Westerman, and I am interviewing Carla Hemlock for the QSOS Quilters Save Our Stories Oral History Project. Today is September 1st, 2022. Tell me about your touchstone quilt.
The quilt that's behind me?
Yes.
My touchstone quilt. Well, this was a quilt that I was able to borrow from someone because quite honestly, I just don't have any quilts of my own in my home. So I borrowed this. I made it for one of my children and I asked them, I'd really like to borrow this for this segment. I made it, I think, 2000, I believe. It was maybe 22 years ago. And it was actually called Walking in the Footsteps of Our Ancestors. So what I did is I took some of our our symbolism that we have from Haudenosaunee creation story. And I use some of the symbolism in there. And in the center, you're going to see a turtle. There's a turtle, and inside of there, my husband is a painter. He's an artist. So he made this beautiful painting. And when I saw it, I said, you know what? I need to borrow this image. So I took just a part of that image, the center of it, and I did a photo transfer and I put it into the quilt. You know, if you look inside and you see it's carrying our wampum belts, our children, there's so much in there. So yeah, my touchstone quilt, I guess, is walking in the footsteps of our ancestors. And I think that's what we're doing today. And, you know, one day we're going to be an ancestor and somebody's going to be walking in our footsteps. So hopefully we can leave a good imprint for them to carry.
That's a beautiful story to go with such a beautiful piece, especially that it was made for one of your children.
Yeah.
How did you get into quilt making?
Well, in our communities, I think if you go into just about any Native community, I'm Mohawk. I'm Ganawage Mohawk. And, you know, when we gift, a lot of our gifting is handmade items. Those are more treasured than something that you're going to go and purchase in a store. So we'll make quilts, beadwork, whatever we can make. The woodworkers will make something in wood, painters in painting. I always gravitated toward beading and sewing. Sewing for my children, which led to them needing a quilt for their bed. A lot of my earlier quilts were all utilitarian for my children or going to a baby shower. And it just, you know, from there, it just evolved. I started beading on quilts maybe a little over 25 years now. And that was by pure accident that I started to do beadwork on quilts. I went to a baby shower. I spent a really long time making this quilt, and it was done. It was completed, and I had it out on the table, and I just left it. I left it for the evening. I woke up the next morning, and one of my children, who was a toddler, decided to take a pen and did his own artwork on my quilt that was completed. So I just couldn't take a blot of the ink out, and I looked at this quilt and I went, oh my gosh, I'm going to the baby shower tonight. What am I going to do? So I took out my beads and I beaded over it. And that was it. That was my first beaded quilt. And after that, I haven't stopped.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think there's a lot of creativity in accidents and mistakes sometimes. And those kids.
Gosh, yeah. Yeah.
That's similar to our house. There were always quilts. My grandma was making quilts, and I had never seen an art quilt. Everything was meant to be always used. So, is there a process you use to design?
Actually, no. I've been asked that so many times, and actually my process, I guess you could say, is rather odd, because I always, like, I'll think about something. I'll think about it for a full year. I'll just think, or, well, yeah, most of my work, I'll think about it for a year, something that I want to make. But I go from the outside in. I know what the outside is going to look like before I get to the center, which is odd, I know. But that's how I work. There's nothing sketched, there's nothing designed, I have no idea what the final size is going to be. I have no idea what it's really actually going to look like when it's done. It just kind of evolves. All of my work, every single thing I've ever done has just started me going, okay, let's do this. Let's try this. It was always, let's try it. So yeah, that's most of how I work, from my quilting to my beading. I do also with my husband cradle boards. I'll do the cradle board cover, and he does the baby carriers. He'll actually construct the carrier. So the same way, we both, there's no design. It's just, okay, let's just do this. So that's how my work has always been. I don't know what I would do if I sat down and actually sketched something. It probably would never work out. So, so yeah, I enjoy doing it like this. This way I can say, yeah, it worked how I wanted it to.
It's very organic.
Yeah.
How do sustainability and the environment influence your work?
A lot of my work, either, well, moving from utilitarian to maybe wanting to say something with my work. It had started with me saying, okay, let me try something. I'd really like to say something, but I want to say it through a quilt. And I've chosen some pretty difficult subjects, being from land issues to land rights to environment to displacement to, I mean, there's so many issues that I've tried, but I think the most effective is to come across through quilt making. Some of the subjects I chose to kind of tackle were hard subjects for people to want to engage in. But I thought the easiest way was to engage them through the design of a quilt, because when they look at a quilt, they're drawn in, because a quilt is it's comfort. People see quilts as non-threatening, that they're a very comfortable, gives them comfort. So when they come in and they look at the work, and if the issue is fracking, then you start the conversation. What the heck is a fracking quilt? And then we discuss it. I did a Washington Redskin quilt, and I brought it to Washington. And boy, did I have some really good discussions up there about that quilt. So yeah, there's been so many issues that I've wanted to tackle, and I find it really easy to do it through a quilt. Yeah.
It's a great interview. That's only about a third of the interview. So we were so proud of that. And Gwen, again, did a great job. Is a friend and colleague of Carla's. So I think it really helped in her interviewing. You don't have to know the person you're interviewing, but it doesn't hurt, I've only got enough time to show you probably one of these, but Lucy, if you'll look in that chat box links list, I just added one for the full playlist for all the museum show and share videos that we received from partners in all these museums all over the country. There's a YouTube playlist with a bunch of videos that it was so great, because we got to work with museums that we haven't partnered with. We got to meet museum staff, and this was in 2021 when everybody was really starting to miss traveling. I know I was. And being able to go to these museums virtually was great. And for some of the museums and art centers, they didn't have a program like this already. So it was a nice quick format. Go Tell It videos, that's what this project is, are 3 minutes or less. And anyone can submit a Go Tell It video to us via our website. So I'm going to play at least this first one with Diana Bell Kite of the North Carolina Museum of History, and you can see what quilt she chose to share.
My name is Diana Bell Kite, and I'm telling this story for Quilters Take a Moment. I'm the curator of cultural history at the North Carolina Museum of History, and we have about 400 quilts in our collection. And this one here is one of my favorites. A woman named Eliza Helen Rogers Arrington made this quilt from sewing scraps and sackcloth in the late 1930s or early 1940s. Arrington grew up on a farm in Wake County, North Carolina, during a period when many families, especially African American families like Arrington's, had to work as sharecroppers or tenant farmers. Arrington's parents were proud to own their own land, and everyone in the family worked on the farm, including the children. They raised or made nearly everything they needed. Eliza married at age 16, and she learned to quilt from her mother-in-law. She started out using quilting frames, but soon began to prefer lap quilting. Her daughter later remembered that she made two kinds of quilts. She made everyday quilts like this one, and she also made special occasion quilts that were used when company came over to spend the night. Eliza Arrington believed in wasting nothing, so she saved every available scrap of material for quilting. While quilting, Arrington would talk to her children and pass down family stories from her grandmother. She would also give them advice. When you grow up, be something. Go to school, get an education, work and save some money. If you only make 10 cents, save 5. Her children also remembered how proud she felt after she finished a new quilt. Her children had a little ritual every time she finished. They would point out recognizable pieces of fabric saying, "That's my dress, that's your dress, that's Mama's dress, that's the pig's sack." Eliza Arrington's quilts tell us about more than fabric and stitches. They really open a window on her life and allow us to learn about her values and her dreams and her motivations. And that's why I'm so glad that this quilt is part of our collection, because it allows us to teach new generations of North Carolinians about Eliza Arrington and her quilt.
They did a great job with that. And, you know, they edited a bit, they added some music, it was a little bit more, you know, it was a little bit snazzier. They had the budget to do that and the staff to do that, but it doesn't have to be that involved. The next one I'm going to show you one more from the Illinois State Museum. And theirs is more straightforward. They did a credit at the beginning, but easily something that someone could record on their phone or notebook and upload it to us.
Hi, my name is June Chappelle, and this is a story about this particular quilt here, and it is entitled The Weary Blues by Cherise Wright, which is featured here at the Illinois State Museum in an exhibit called Ancestral Threads. It is a tribute exhibit to the fiber art of Cherise Wright. She was not only an educator, but an extremely talented quilting artist here in Illinois, and a Black quilting artist at that. Her inspiration behind this quilt was likely her extreme love for history and literature. And another one of her inspirations was Langston Hughes's The Weary Blues. It's a poem that was written during the Harlem Renaissance by Hughes in 1925. His particular inspiration behind this, or drive behind creating that particular poem, was he was sitting in a bar in Harlem on Lenox Avenue, and he was listening to really sultry sounds of a man who was playing piano there. And in that instant, he took out a pen and paper, I imagine, and started to write. Miss Cherise had an extreme love for the Harlem Renaissance era, and she usually drew her inspiration from other Black creatives around her, and also others that she likely did not know from past and present. Unfortunately, she passed away about March of 2015, just a few months shy of her 39th birthday. But her work and her legacy continue to live on, and this exhibit was done as a tribute to her life and her legacy, and her love for herself, her love for her people, her love for her family. If you or someone you know would be interested in this wonderful and beautifully put together exhibit that was done by myself and a team of my colleagues here at the Illinois State Museum, we would love to have you. There are over 20 pieces of Miss Sharice's here that I'm sure will inspire you, that will capture your eye in the most wonderful ways possible. So please come out and see us.
I love the way they use that as a promotion for a specific exhibit in the at the museum. So if you work for a museum or a small historical organization or community organization, a library, and you want to do some Go Tell Us, let us know. We can help you, direct you to the do-it-yourself area on our website. And it's a really cool program to use, and it's especially very budget friendly. So I want to give you just a little peek because QTM is alive and well. I want to give you a peek at our 30th anniversary year event. So this is the 4th Quilters Take a Moment. And the 2023 is documenting your quilt story. And it takes a little bit of a different form this year. It's workshops, 9 separate workshops, all with one pass. So you just pay one ticket price and you get 9 workshops designed to help you document your quilt story better and in new ways, either quilts you own, quilts you've made, or a combination. You do not have to be a quilt maker for this workshop series to be useful to you. We're going to present the workshops over 3 consecutive Thursdays in October. Most of the content has been pre-recorded, but we'll have QA staff presenting them, and we'll have a question and answer with the teachers of the workshops at the end of the day. But all of the content will be recorded. So I want to show you quickly what the sections are, what each of the workshops are. So at the Quilt Alliance, what we do is try to provide resources to quilt makers and quilt owners that will help them document their quilts, get the story down in a way that will be hopefully outlive the maker and the person that knows the most about that quilt, because that's one thing we certainly know about quilts is that they typically outlive their makers and their owners. So here are the workshops about writing for and about your quilts. We also have a section on, photographing your quilts. So different ways to photograph your quilts. The Meg Cox is doing her photo workshop, and Azuri Holloway and her husband Trevor Holloway are 2 of the photographers for Quilt Folk magazine. So they are, if you've seen the magazine, you've seen the level of their photographs. And Trevor's going to talk about styling your quilts, how to pose your quilts, so to speak. And then the last one will be labeling and documentation about making those labels, whether it's the practice of doing so and doing them artfully from Laura Hartrick, or Amira Amarudin is going to do a very basic how to design and print custom labels using Canva. And then myself and Emma Parker, my colleague, will be doing a little bit about documenting your quilts in terms of using Quilt Alliance tools and resources. So that's what we have on tap this year. And since it's our 30th anniversary, we thought long and hard about this. We want to give a birthday present to our members. So if you join or are a current member through the end of the year, we're going to open up access to all the QTMs. So all the Quilters Take a Moment footage content will be added to the member portal, so you can log into your member account and watch the full versions of what I showed you earlier today, and tons more content. So it's a great time to join. We have a Block of the Month project going on now that you'll receive and get updated. You'll get the full 10 blocks, and you get a pass to this year's Quilters Take a Moment, which is the preview I just gave you. So great time to join. I hope you'll do so. It's a very good bargain as far as workshops are concerned, and it's QTM2023.org. I'm going to ask for Lucy to enter in the link in the chat box now so you can find it easily, as well as that. Oh, thank you, Lucy. And I want to, before we acknowledge our sponsors again, I want to remind everyone about next week's Textile Talk. Thank you so much for being here today, by the way. And I hope you got something out of it. And I hope you're thinking about your own documentation habits now and are inspired by what you saw. Next week is Chiaki Dosho. I hope I didn't ruin that pronunciation. Fiber Art Experiments Over 3 Decades, presented by Sakwa. And you can register for any of the Textile Talks on this page, this link I'm giving you. You can also register for the talks on our website under Textile Talks. There are lots of places. And we certainly want to thank our sponsors again. Lucy's going to play the video. We could not do this without our Textile Talk sponsors. Thank you to all of you who are sponsoring and all of you who have made personal donations. That's another way you can support what we're doing. It's great to see a full group attending today, and I hope you all have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for being here, and take care.